Russia is killing kids. Okay, now that is a really salacious headline, and it's true. We know because it just happened, and it is on purpose. These are targeted missile attacks, okay? A major attack on the capital city of Kyiv. That was not as effective because of the anti-missile systems were very effective. But in a town just south of Kyiv, they killed 25 people, civilians, including young kids. Why? Because they're hitting residential buildings, okay? Reports say 21 of the 23 Russian missiles were intercepted by Ukrainian defense systems. By the way, these are the ones that a lot of people said maybe we shouldn't give them, okay? Imagine if they hadn't had them. Just 2 missiles, 25 dead. Imagine what a night of terror that would have been. Imagine it. Let's bring in Dan Rice, the former advisor to the Ukrainian Armed Forces commander. You've been there in country. I agree with your assessment completely when it comes to Kyiv. Sometimes you feel like, is there a war going on here? Because they've kept it relatively safe. But do you have any question from your experience and information as to whether or not Russia is intentionally targeting civilian spaces and individuals?
Absolutely, Chris. Well, thanks for having me on. And yeah, the Russian military reflects Russian society. I think it's a bankrupt culture. It's morally and immorally bankrupt. They are intentionally targeting, trying to destroy and kill women, children, elderly, civilians. They're attacking large residential buildings. Fortunately, the West has done an amazing job in increasing the air defense systems, Raytheon in particular, and I know a lot of the team over there, but their NASAM system is knocking down most of the cruise missiles that are coming in. So 99% of them are being hit and taken down. But they're still getting through. And when they get through, they hit civilian targets because that's who the Russians are targeting. They're sick.
Next question for the uninitiated. Hey, war is hell, Dan. Anything goes.
You know, I mean, there are rules of land warfare, and there's a Geneva Convention, and Russia violates them all the time. They violated them in Chechnya in '99, Georgia 2008, Donbass 2014, Syria 2016. They're doing it again in 2022 and 2023. They violate the law all the time. They're never held accountable. It's time that the West has to stand up and fight for freedom and democracy, and I'm really proud to see that the West has done so. We're giving them incredible numbers of weapons, but we're not enough. We need more. Until we win, until Ukraine wins, we haven't given them enough. And we know exactly what they need. We know exactly what they need. And the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who I've met with, General Milley, he knows what they need. Let's just give them, Congress needs to step up and say, what do you need, General Milley, to win this war? And Ukraine will win.
We went to Bakhmut most recently because Ukrainian officials were saying this place is instructive of what this is about. It is not a tactical city. It's not a strategic position. They're just doing it to kill people and scare as many people as they can. And that really should be motive enough for the American people to get behind us giving whatever we can. Otherwise, you know what it means. It means that you're going to have your boots on the ground there at some point, and nobody wants that. Now, the flip side of it, Dan, is this. The idea that Russia is losing on purpose, that they have to be able to use all their big bad weapons that they have and just end this. Why are they not doing that? Do you agree with that analogy?
No, I don't. And first of all, let me thank you for going to Ukraine. I think it's incredibly important for journalists to go to Ukraine, and thank you for doing that because it's important to shine a light on what's going on here. Ukraine is the defending Western democracy, in my opinion, and Russia would have kept going. However, they are throwing everything they have short of nuclear weapons at Ukraine, and we are not throwing everything we have. We haven't engaged our fleet, our Air Force. We haven't engaged so many of our weapons. We started with the lowest level technology and we slowly are simmering it up. What we need to do is we need to give them 3 things. We need to give them the artillery ammunition they need, which is cluster munition. We need HIMARS rockets, which are cluster munitions, and we need ATACMs, which are longer range. If we give them those 3 things in volume, which we have 3.5 million rounds of artillery shells, they will win. We need to give that to them now to save Ukrainian lives in the upcoming counteroffensive. It's so important to give Ukraine what they need to save these young people's lives.
One last question for you. One of the things that is attributed to Ukraine doing better are Ukrainian cluster munitions. I want to understand what those are, because when I was in Ukraine 2 times ago, some of the Ukrainian soldiers showed me the frames of rockets that they had taken that they said came from Russia. And they said, these are cluster bombs. These are illegal. You're not supposed to use them. But is that what Ukraine is using on Russians?
It's a complicated subject, sir, so I really appreciate you asking that question, because there's a very big difference between intent for use of weapons and actually the type of weapon. Separate things. Russia uses cluster bombs against civilian targets. That's a war crime. That's wrong and illegal, and everyone knows it, and they know it. But they do it indiscriminately. Ukraine wants to fire cluster munitions, artillery shells, not bombs, big difference, artillery shells, at Russian military targets. That's perfectly legal according to the Geneva Convention. That's what we would use if we were fighting the Russians, and that's what I would have used as a lieutenant or captain. I was an artillery officer, then an infantry officer, and that's what basically Jack Deach from Foreign Policy disclosed the information in January 2023 that Turkey was providing DPICM rounds. That's the type of round, the acronym that every Army always uses acronyms, but it's dual purpose improved conventional munition. It's an artillery shell that fires and explodes over the target and has 88 small bomblets. Turkey's given a small number to Ukraine. Ukraine has used them incredibly effectively. That's why the Russian killed in action going back in April and May of last year was around 5,000 a month. It's now at 25,000 a month. The Ukrainians are killing the Russians mostly because of DPICM. If Congress would give Ukraine the number we need, the war would end, in my opinion. That's the key to winning this counteroffensive.
Last quick thing. Who's doing the counting? How do we know how many are dying?
I've been on missions with the Ukrainian military and attacked Russian forces and seen the battle damage assessments, both from intelligence and from drone footage, and I actually think they're conservative. This is the first war in history that's being documented by drone footage on almost every attack. And so the Ukrainians have really good data and battle damage assessment, so I don't doubt it at all. And in fact, I think their numbers are conservative. I think they've killed more Russians and wounded more Russians than anybody would believe. I think the Russians know it. They're losing badly, and that's why they're attacking civilian targets, because they can't win on the battlefield. And they're attacking civilian targets, hoping that they'll weaken the resolve, which is not happening. The Ukrainian resolve is resolute. They will fight until they get back to the 91 borders.
It is superhuman, the resolve.
Yes, sir.
But the bodies
Absolutely.
on the ground
they have
are
no
all
choice.
too human.
They have no choice. It's an existential threat that wants to rape, pillage, destroy, and murder their people. They have no choice but to fight, and they are resolute in fighting. Thank you.
Dan Rice, thank you so much. To be continued. The next time I go over there, it's got to be with you.
I'd love to go with you, sir. Thank you. I'll go next week. I'm heading over next week. Come join me.
All right, well, let's go slow down, slow down. I'll talk to you about it. Take care, Dan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.